Some more excellent Proverbs today, and today we're doing 16 to 20. This is actually the first time that I've filled up an entire notepad in one video with notes, because I was determined to do these in fives, and I had to cram on the last little bit, and I've had to skip quite a bit. So we're going to fly through these, because otherwise this video is going to get far too long. The first bit noted, most of these, as previously, are quotes, so I'm just recalling what's in it, really, and seeing what it means. Through love and faithfulness, sin is atoned for. Through fear of the Lord, evil is avoided. That's interesting, because I thought sacrifice is what atones for sin. And I seem to like a very New Testament idea that it's sort of, love and faithfulness. So I don't know if it's getting ahead of its time or something like that, or if I've just misunderstood something. It's an interesting idea anyway. We then have pride gives, no, my handwriting again. Pride goes before destruction and haughty spirit before a fall. Pride goes before a fall, that seems to be, I think is that a paraphrase of what came from here? But I mean, reasonable, seems it, so could be a thing. A wicked person listens to deceitful lips, and a liar pays attention to a destructive tongue. What? I keep running that in my head, and I was like, no, I don't understand it. But a liar pays attention to a destructive tongue. But the liar is the person listening, not the person talking. It's very confusing. Anyone's got any ideas on what that is? I'd love to hear it. Next, we have better to meet a bear robbed of her cubs than a fool bent on folly. Which is, well, that's brilliant. I mean, obviously a bear robbed of her cubs is going to be a very angry bear and very dangerous. So for something to be worse than that, a fool bent on folly is worse than that. Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam, which I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? You escalate and end up with things moving on. I guess that's all cool. It's interesting how so many of these are applicable today. And I mean, a lot of the older stuff in the Bible is really like of its time. It's difficult to then bring that forward to now. But these Proverbs, most of these are brilliant. They just really sort of drop into modern society. Whoever has understanding is even-tempered. I suppose if you have understanding, it creates the even temper, I suppose. That's something I'm not particularly great at. I'm not bad-tempered, but I would like to be better-tempered, so I guess there's more understanding to go. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent. Which, yeah, difficult to argue with that, isn't it? Because, I mean, generally, I suppose that alludes to the foolishness is largely about what people say. So if I don't say anything, perhaps they can escape some of the foolishness. So if you're a bit of a muppet, try not to say stuff, I guess. But says the man on the internet talking about lots of things he doesn't know anything about. But, you know. Fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions, which seems very much a sort of problem of the times, doesn't it? So some of the crazy stuff that people come out with that just makes no sense. Next, we have the lips of fools bring them strife, and their mouths invite a beating. I don't think that means it's okay to give them a beating, but yeah, I mean, that's clearly where that's. I guess again, this is their time. I think this is still Solomon writing all of these as well. So we are talking, yeah, fat end of 3,000 years ago. The wealth of the rich. The wealth of the. Why can't I say wealth? The wealth of the rich is like a fortified city. They imagine it a wall too high to scale. That's an interesting idea that stuff in secular terms makes perfect sense. Yes, if you're wealthy and you've got a big high wall, then that's, I mean, obviously a metaphorical wall, but wealth is like a big wall that protects you from various things, not from everything, but you know, you're in better position if you have the money to. You can protect your family better, but clearly in biblical terms it's not such a good thing, and that's a difficult one to know quite what to do with that. To answer before listening, that is a folly and shame. That's something I see a lot in my area of work in finance. A lot of people answering questions that they haven't actually been asked yet, and therefore sort of assuming what that question is, and generally being quite often wrong. In a lawsuit, the first to speak seems right until someone comes forward and cross-examines. That makes a nice point, actually, of one of my, not my objections, but one of my sort of concerns, because I'm basically listening to the Bible which sounds pretty good. I mean, I think mostly reading around the stuff, it's pretty solid. It's pretty difficult to put holes in it. In fact, I've put a lot of effort into throwing some really heavy objections at this thing, and it holds up really well. And I guess in that sense, there's like the cross-examine is when I throw the other stuff at it and it's still holding up. But in my head, there's still something I've missed that needs to be thrown at it. And that, I guess for me, is where in my head I'm thinking, well, that's where it may fall down. But I don't know what that is. I'm sort of completely making it up, and it makes no sense to look at it like that at all. But I guess that's just the way you feel, isn't it? In Proverb number 19, weirdly, verses 5 and 9 are identical. And they say, a false witness will not go unpunished, and whoever pours out lies will perish. I mean, yeah, is that worth putting in the Bible twice? I don't know. But it's almost like you wonder if is that some sort of error. But no mention of it on the footnote or anything. A king's rage is like the roar of a lion, but his favour is like dew on the grass. Which I guess ties back to that idea we had previously, that God is not in the wind or the rain or whatever, God is in the whisper. It's a suggestion that favour with God is a very subtle thing, which is annoying, obviously, because if you're not being wicked and you're trying to find this stuff, then it's almost like there's nothing there. Dew, I suppose, is very widespread and I guess powerful. I mean, if you gathered all that water up together, I'm sure it'd be an awful lot of water. But it doesn't seem like very much, does it? So, yeah, it's sort of annoying, that whole subtlety angle of it all. But I guess it makes sense. Yes, I think it's fair to say that makes sense, that it would be that way. But it's annoying when you're trying to figure this stuff out. Yeah, we're then getting a bit more of its time sort of thing. So a quarrelsome wife is like the constant dripping of a leaky roof. And bearing in mind this is coming from Solomon with 700 wives. But then he does go on to say at least that a prudent wife is from the Lord, which I assume is a compliment to a prudent wife, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, it's difficult to take him very seriously with anything to do with women, isn't it? So I think we'll just move on. What on earth does that say? Can't rescue a you can't rescue a hot-tempered person because you'll just have to do it again later. I'm flying through even fast now rather than writing the quotes out. So yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? That's an interesting idea, though, isn't it? If you need to help someone, that's almost suggesting don't bother if they're not ready to be helped, I think, to some extent. Which, I don't know, that's a really interesting question of where you should draw the line with helping. Because you get some people who could do with some help, but they're muppets, and you're just wasting your time to do it, or they're just going to ruin your life to do it. And I think that's quite an interesting question that emerges around Christianity and doing the right thing and that sort of thing. So it's interesting that this sort of seems to suggest that you can just sort of write them off, albeit that's a very convenient thing that I would almost like to hear. So yeah, I guess I have to be a bit careful with that. Some people basically talk about plans are irrelevant relative to God's purpose. So you can have all the plans you want, but God's going to get you to do that. I guess that gets back to the idea of responsibility and how the Bible seems to sort of undermine that to quite a significant extent. And I have a bit of a problem with that, so I'm struggling with that one a little bit. Don't be led astray by beer and wine. I mean, yeah, fine, potential. Avoid anyone who talks too much, which I generally try to do anyway. This does seem to be related to gossip, though, so it's not necessarily just a verbose, wise, learned person sharing their wisdom. It does seem to be more about gossip. Verse 24 of Proverb number 20, a person's steps are directed by the Lord. How can anyone understand their own way? My handwriting is terrible, and it's dark in here. That again seems to get to the responsibility idea, which I don't like. Of all the stuff in the Bible so far, I'm going to get to the genocide thing, and that's a bit of a problem for some people. For me, there's this responsibility. It's just the suggestion that there is none, and this seems absurd. So I don't know. I have to keep working on that one. We then have the human spirit is the lamp of the Lord that sheds light on one's inmost being. Yeah, I read it initially just as the first bit. The human spirit is the lamp of the Lord. Oh, that's very profound. Write that down. And then realise on the next page that it carries on. And it sort of seems to change the meaning, because that sheds life on one's inmost being. What could that mean? The human spirit. Something in our human spirit should help us identify something about what it is to be human. Something like that, maybe. Oh, I don't know. These are brilliant, but gosh, they're hard going. And I can't even read that last one because I jam it right in at the bottom. Something about blows. Oh, that's blue. Blows and wounds scrub away evil, and beatings purge the inmost being. So the previous one talked about this inmost being, that the human spirit sheds light on one's inmost being, and then talking about some sort of physical strife of blows and wounds are good for purging evil. So you beat the crap out of someone, that's good for them. And then those beatings purge the inmost being. But what's to purge about the inmost being? Or maybe to purify it or something like that? I don't know. It just went up a whole level, I think, on this lot. So hopefully that's not going to be the theme for the next ones, because I'm not going to have any clues at all about what any of that means. We don't have too many more to go now, but it's still thoroughly enjoying the Book of Proverbs. It's really interesting, and see how it relates to modern times. So on we shall go to see what else we can find.